The House of Mystery presents Inside Writing, the radio show where authors discuss their writing process in all genres.
All right, we've made it back, and joining us now on the phone is Travis View. How are you doing, Travis?
I'm doing wonderfully today, Al. How are you doing?
I'm always good.
Okay, good.
So let's. There's been a lot going on in your world. I see you're very, very active on Twitter, and there's all sorts of stuff going on, especially in conspiracy. What's been really hitting the headlines lately?
Well, of course, everyone is talking about Epstein. This is sort of the incident that sort of made everyone a conspiracy theorist. Both his arrest and his still being investigated death, which was officially ruled a suicide by the medical examiner. But of course, there are lots of issues surrounding that. There was a, as the New York Times reported, there was a cover up from the guards who were supposed to be watching him but failed to. And this whole incident certainly has energized the QAnon community. I'll say that.
So after Epstein died, all of these conspiracy theories popped up, and both sides were sort of pointing fingers at the other side. So you had some people saying it was Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton who killed him, and then you had people on the other side saying that Trump must have killed him. I mean, where did you see more of this coming from?
I mean, yeah. This is part of an age-old, at least decades-old, conspiracy theory was the Clinton body count, in which a lot of people who don't like Bill and Hillary Clinton accuse sort of like people surrounding the Clintons of dying mysteriously through suicides and stuff. This was like dates back to, I think, Vince Foster. It was an old case where someone that people basically accused of killing. But I mean, what's really interesting about the Epstein case is that because he is so connected to elite circles, just everyone, including Trump and the Clintons, everyone had a way to sort of like connect Epstein to someone that they didn't like. And this is, of course, why it's sort of like perfect fodder for conspiracy theories, is that because he had all of these connections and because of like the very depraved, credible allegations against him, there were a lot of people in elite circles who maybe would not want him to talk anymore. So it's just a perfect storm for generating conspiracy theories.
But now let me ask you, do you think it was true that he was killed by some rich, powerful cabal to cover up secrets? And do you think that his connections sort of, are much more seedier than we even heard about?
I think that this is definitely, and the more you read into it, I think that there are things that we are not being told, both about Epstein and his connections and the circumstances surrounding his death. Like we said, it's already been confirmed that the guards didn't check on him every half hour as they were supposed to, and then they attempted to cover it up. Now you might just chalk it up to simple incompetence, but whenever there's a mysterious death of a well-connected person, and it's already known that there was a cover-up involved in his death, well, you can't help but want to ask questions. If I had to guess, I would say it probably is suicide, just because real life is just never quite as exciting as it is in the conspiracy theories. But I will say that there are some unanswered questions that I would like to see answered.
It seems like it blew up really quick as soon as he died, and now it's, once the medical examiner came out and said it was indeed suicide, that all the chatter about it seems to have gone away for the most part. Do you think that just sort of once people got, an official ruling on it, that it just shut them up?
I think that certainly will satisfy sort of like the most sort of news consumers who just read the headlines. Now, the people who are like news junkies and the people who are obviously the conspiracy theorists, that is still unsatisfying. And there's still multiple investigations into the matter, and I'm really interested in seeing what comes of that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't shock me at all, because if you say you have some public union employees who are probably understaffed, overpaid, working a lot of OT to make extra money, and they're not making as many rounds in the prison, where there's really no one to watch what they're doing, and they're not checking in as much at 3 a.m. as they should be. I mean, who's going to say that that's abnormal or shocking or anything like that?
Yeah. That's certainly. I mean, again, this is another instance, and there's also the apparently he was briefly on suicide watch when he had Epstein was briefly on suicide watch when he had allegedly tried to commit suicide previously, and then he was taken off that after being determined that he wasn't a risk to himself, and then he did have a cellmate, but he was transferred out of his cell shortly before he committed suicide. And this was something else that was apparently against regulations. Again, when after this, we started hearing all sorts of stories that come out of the Metropolitan Correctional Center about all the things you said. It's understaffed. It's not, the people who are guarding it aren't always even, full-time correctional officers. There are lots of errors being made, so it's just a poorly run facility, and this is just an example of sort of how poorly it was administered, and so it's just easier to chalk it up to incompetence rather than some sort of grand sort of conspiracy. But still, I feel like there is. I would like to see some questions answered. That's all.
So why don't we move along a little bit? So how about Epstein was a very popular topic of conversation for the QAnon community. And these people, despite it sort of looking bad for Trump, that Epstein had some connections to, I guess, some of the people in the Trump administration, and it looks like they may have helped him get a sweet deal 10 years ago.
Yes, that's Alexander Acosta, the labor secretary, who helped broker the 2006 deal that basically helped Epstein get off on a minor charge for the very, very serious crimes he was accused of.
So Acosta eventually resigned, but it would look to most observers like there are some connections there between Epstein and Trump, and that would sort of upset the QAnon people who are convinced that Trump is fighting the satanic sex trafficking cabal, which is being run by the Democrats.
Right.
So how did they turn this into something they could swallow?
Well, I mean, as always with QAnon, it's always part of the plan. They even suggested that there's a famous comment by Trump where Trump talks about Epstein. He says that Epstein, who he kind of likes girls on the younger side, he thought that this was all part of a plan to eventually take down Epstein. This is a common theme in QAnon, where Trump, he knows all about this evil sex trafficking cult and cabal, but he's been waiting for a long time to take action against it until he was elected president. They have this belief that what's happening in QAnon world, this belief that Trump is helping take down this global cabal is part of a decades-long plan that's just being slowly executed. And so that's how they kind of rationalize it. Now, of course, in order to believe that, you'd have to believe that Donald Trump knew about Jeffrey Epstein's, child abuse and sex trafficking, and did nothing about it for decades, which is, arguably a not exactly noble move.
Yeah. So now that Epstein's dead, are they counting this as a victory, or are they also saying that it's a conspiracy? Do they think Clinton may have killed him?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're basically the thing about the QAnon community is that it's really more of like a wellspring of different conspiracy theories. For example, I mean, there's the most popular sort of like, I guess, mainstream conspiracy theory was that it was part of the Clinton body count, whereas some other more, I guess, niche-y QAnon conspiracy theorists, they speculate that Jeffrey Epstein is not dead, that he had merely faked his death as part of a plea agreement in order to protect him from the cabal. And now he's still alive in some sort of military holding cell. And then he's still working with the Trump team to help take down the cabal.
Huh. So...
He's with JFK Jr., right?
Yeah.
Yes, JFK Jr. This is a common thing in QAnon. Dead people are alive and alive people are dead.
So Q has not been posting for some time, and maybe you could fill us in a little bit as to, maybe you could take a guess as to why, but there weren't any Q posts. And then 8chan, which is the forum where Q puts his breadcrumbs, has now disappeared for at least the time being. So what's going on in QAnon world with that?
So So it was like a few weeks ago, actually. 8chan. This actually just happened as a consequence of the El Paso shooting. Now, before the El Paso shooting, the shooter allegedly posted a manifesto to the site before he shot up people in a El Paso Walmart. And this was the third time that someone had done this. And so in response, Cloudflare, which is a company that provides basically DDoS protection services for websites, stopped supporting 8chan. And as a consequence of that, 8chan went down. And so what happened is that with no more 8chan, Q can't post anywhere, because part of the sort of the Q sort of mythology is that there's supposed to be no outside comms. Q has made this very, very clear. There's to be no sort of communications outside of 8chan. Now, this was originally very, very clever on Q's part, because it was designed to basically no one could sort of say on Twitter, for example, I had some secret communications with the Q team, and here's what they said. They sort of invalidated that right off the bat, so they could have as much control as possible over the Q narrative. But it requires 8chan to stay up, and they didn't count on 8chan going down. So as a consequence of 8chan going down, Q is silent. But the QAnon community still has hope that Q will return. They are essentially awaiting the second coming of Q. They suspect that this might happen by September 5th, which is the day that Jim Watkins, the current owner of 8chan, is expected to testify at Congress.
So they think that 8chan's going to come back on. And is there hope that Congress is going to do something to bring it back? Because that seems politically unfeasible, to bring back a platform where you have racist killers posting things.
It is. Yeah, I mean, the obstacle towards bringing it back right now isn't even legal. It's technical. They're apparently having they're unable to get any sort of third-party vendors to help them get the site back up. And that's because the site is just so toxic that no one wants to help it or support it in any way.
Well, they can't get some North Korean or Russian hacker to host it on their platform or something.
That might be the next option. I mean, there are sort of conflicting reports on whether or not it's viable for 8chan to come back in any sort of sustainable way. I mean, if they come back, it's possible that they'll be really, really vulnerable to attacks from like hacktivists and stuff that would take it down immediately. According to Frederick Brennan, who actually created the site and has since come around to saying that it should stay offline, he believes that the technical obstacles that the very small team of 8chan administrators are having is that the technical challenges are so great that it's really unlikely that 8chan is going to come back. Jim Watkins, the current owner of 8chan, on the other hand, says that, he still has 8chan down voluntarily, and he will bring it back after he speaks to Congress. I mean, the testimony of Congress is really more about addressing issues of domestic extremism in the United States, and they wanted some perspectives from Jim Watkins about that.
So, I guess this sort of begs a question. I mean, if Q is indeed a high-ranking Trump administration official who's involved in a deep cover operation to take down the satanic child trafficking cabal. I mean, why 8chan? I mean, why not anywhere else? I mean, why on some place that only, extremists seem to traffic, a place that isn't very welcoming to most people, that most people have never heard of or go to? Why there? And if the goal is to build a Q army, I mean, that seems like the worst place to do it.
You're absolutely right. Why a place so incredibly depraved and so awful that it turns out like third-party vendors don't want to do anything to help the site. Why there of all places? I mean, there's really no sensible explanation. I mean, a lot of people, QAnon people, they say something to the effect of, well, Q has to build like plausible deniability, where it can't be super obvious that they are actually Trump officials, because that would give away the game for some reason. So they chose this particular site, which they believe is a free speech haven in their perspective, in order to deliver these Q drops in a way that only the very, very smart people on the chans can understand, is basically their perspective.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I guess that brings up a second question, too, is if this Q person is so indeed powerful, then how would their one way of communicating be taken down and then not replaced, and then they don't know how to put it back up?
Yeah, it is a very poor military intelligence operation that has one single communications channel and no backup plans. They clearly didn't think that this would happen at all. So yeah, it is the more you examine it, the more absurd the whole mythology about this being a secret military intelligence team close to Trump is.
So what happens now? So the way for Q to communicate with his followers has been taken down. It may not return. He still has a lot of acolytes on Twitter and other social media. What's happening now? I mean, what do these people have to go on at this point if they don't have?
They still have basically all of the sort of like the ways of thinking that sort of Q has trained them in. I'll give you an example. Very recently, Congressman Devin Nunes posted a photograph of on Instagram of himself grilling a grill full of burgers. And the QAnon followers, they counted 17 burgers, and they thought that this was a secret signal to the QAnon community. So they're still trying to find codes and sort of secret messages and images and stuff. And they still exhibit that behavior. And on top of that, they're also trying to get organized in real life. For example, on this coming 9/11 in Washington, D.C., near the Washington Monument, there's going to be the first, possibly the only, Great Awakening rally. And this is basically a rally designed just for QAnon believers to get together and network and try, I guess, and show off how big and organized the QAnon community really is. I mean, we'll see how successful that is, but yeah, so that's what they're doing. They're trying to get organized in a way that's sort of offline, and they're still sort of trying to find secret codes and little things everywhere.
And they're going to have this rally on 9/11, or because that's a Wednesday.
That is a Wednesday indeed. Yeah, middle of the week, and it's a very weird, strange, I would argue, poor choice. This is already a patriotic day of mourning in the United States. I'm not sure why they would try to distract from that by having the rally on 9/11, but yeah, that's when it's scheduled.
It is strange. So I noticed that a few months back they had a bunch of people. Some were Q followers, some were not. But they went and they protested outside of Hillary Clinton's house in Chappaqua, New York, I think. And they went to the police station. They demanded that she be arrested for, the secret child ring and whatnot that she was running and all the murders she committed. The police didn't arrest her, and there was no violence out of that. it is strange that you have people going through such lengths. I mean, it's one thing to be on a social media site and say, hey, I believe this and let's talk about it, to I'm going to travel to some random part of New York and go, rally for a day or two.
Yeah, that certainly is certainly concerning. It really is the next step. I'm really interested in the ways that they're trying to organize in real life. I mean, recently they tried to organize a QAnon-themed conference called the Digital Soldiers Conference in Atlanta, but it fell apart where they couldn't get one of their original speakers that they thought they would have, which was General Michael Flynn, and then they wound up canceling that conference. So their efforts to get organized in real life is off to a shaky start, but they are trying, and so it really can be interesting to see what the post-Q QAnon looks like, who the new leaders will be, and what exactly is they're going to have organizations form as a consequence of this. I mean, in truth, Scientology grew without, even after L. Ron Hubbard died. So it remains to be seen how important the Q drops were to the actual Q movement.
Yeah, I would have to wonder. I mean, I think these people's beliefs are still going to be intact. I mean, I think they believed even prior to Q showing up that, the country was run by evil cabals and they were doing terrible things. So I don't think that they've changed their minds in any way, and I don't think Q has persuaded them of anything. I think, if anything, a lot of these people are just sort of, it's the details that they get into, and it's sort of the fun of following it. But once the fun goes away, I have to wonder what's left. I mean, does the community involvement, does the search for the answers go away? Because what do you do when it's just, we have a belief that evil people are doing evil things, and hopefully they'll be thwarted? I mean, so what?
I mean, part of the thrill of the QAnon community is the belief that you are part of a vanguard movement who sees the world for what it is, more so than like most of the normies do, and because there's something very flattering about the way they think themselves as especially smart and perceptive. And so that kind of like that feeling that that I'm part of a small community and who knows what's really going on. I mean, that certainly isn't going to go away, and that certainly was probably going to drive them in the future. They'll still see themselves as someone who is just sort of smarter than the blue-pilled normies who consume news in a more conventional way.
So I imagine you must have seen earlier in the summer that the FBI, a document was leaked from them, from their Arizona branch office, saying that they are now considering looking at conspiracy theorists, including the QAnon group, as potential domestic violence and domestic terror threats.
Yes, I did see that. They warned about the threat of domestic. It was conspiracy theory driven extremism was the phrase that they used.
Yeah. So I have to wonder if the odds of that are increasing with Q being gone, and I wonder if these people, because of that, will become erratic, won't have any sort of direction, won't have anything to spend their time on deciphering clues, and now they're just going to go and, take action into their own hands in some way. I wonder if the danger of this is increased.
That's an excellent question, and that's something actually kind of something that that FBI document that you mentioned warned about. They said that as we get closer to the 2020 election, sort of the politics becomes more polarized, and the risk of this kind of violence it becomes more and more. And and in addition to that, there is a risk. I mean, the nightmare scenario is QAnon followers what they call forcing the end. And this is a concept from Om Shinrikyo, was the Japanese cult. And there's the biggest worry is that QAnon followers will basically get sick of waiting for this apocalyptic mass arrest event of the elites that they think is going to happen. And instead of waiting for the military or someone else to do it, they'll do it themselves. They'll take matters into their own hands. I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. It might not, but that's certainly the worst case scenario.
Now, there are some major, I guess, opinion leaders within the Q community, but they're sort of strange in that these are sort of anonymous Twitter accounts that sort of have been tweeting about this for a long time, like Praying Medic and Joe M. and some of these other ones.
Yes.
Do we know who these people are, and are they themselves Q? And they're a Q acolyte on Twitter at the same time? Are they going to move on, or are they just going to keep doing the same thing?
I mean, there's no one knows who Joe M, that's at Storm is Upon Us, is on Twitter, and which is very strange. He is one of the biggest sort of QAnon thought leaders. He produced some very successful videos about it. There's other one like Praying Medic. We know who Praying Medic is. He is a Arizona, basically religious huckster. But I mean, it has been suspected that individuals behind Q is a man named Coleman Rogers, who goes by Pamphlet who hosts the Patriot Soapbox live stream on YouTube. Some people have also suggested that Praying Medic is another person behind Q. They will almost certainly, as long as there is a community there who believes in this basic narrative that this Q entity has sort of laid out a map to understand what's really going on behind the scenes, then yeah, they'll continue cultivating that community and be leaders in this new community. I mean, they'll be like the Paul the Apostle to Q's Jesus. They'll find new ways to spread and expand upon the message.
So when I see these Q followers on Twitter, many of them, I don't know if they're real people or not, because many of the pictures look like stock photos. There isn't a lot of information about the people, and the descriptions of the people seem to be, just something a Russian hacker would make up, MAGA, Q, whatever. And so, I mean, can we know who the true Q followers are? Are there more fake Q followers than there are real Q followers? Do we know which one is which?
The answer is no. It's not easy to discern which one's a true believer and which one's fake. And it was recently revealed. Twitter did a purge of about 1,000 accounts that were connected to the Chinese government. And one of those accounts was called Liberating Lion News. It was pretended to be a QAnon follower. So that's sort of confirmation that not only the Russians are getting in on sort of pushing QAnon in the United States, but the Chinese are too. So we have multiple foreign agents from multiple foreign countries who see QAnon probably as like a way to sort of weaken the nation politically, to create more division and confusion, and so that gives them incentive to pump up QAnon as much as possible. And so, I mean, I wish there was some sort of really easy way to separate the true believers from the people who are faking it online. But really, at the moment, there just isn't. That's just going to add to the confusion.
Yeah, because I have to wonder. I mean, obviously, the FBI is looking at this as a hotbed of potential violence. But on the other hand, if it's a bunch of semi-anonymous Twitter accounts, how would they go about keeping an eye on these people or watching them or even know where violence would spring from? Because it's almost impossible to track.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's very, very confusing. The majority of QAnon followers, I would say, they are at low risk of doing anything really serious. I mean, QAnon is ultimately sort of like a passive kind of movement. But if that were to change, how would you separate the real threats from the sort of like the bots or the foreign agents who are just causing chaos online? That's a difficult question. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. Imagine if we flipped it on its head and say, what if Q were to come out? let's say 8chan came back up and Q were to come out and call for some sort of widespread violence. I mean, I doubt he would get it, but my guess is you would have some amount of people engaging in some sort of violence on this person's word, and we have no idea who it is.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, this is the sort of the danger and the mystery of like Q. It's like I spoke to Frederick Brennan, the creator of 8chan. He said that he didn't, he had no idea who Q was, and it still remains a mystery. There's certainly a few leads of who it really is, who might be responsible if Q does come back and starts asking people to do dangerous things. But yeah, it's a situation filled with mysteries still.
So I keep coming back to this one call that I received maybe a year ago, and it was a dad who reached out to me and said that his son had quit his lucrative job. The son had gone to college and was working in the financial arena, had quit his job to go become a QAnon YouTuber. And he was very, very concerned about the son, about his future job prospects, and because not only was he going to follow Q and quit his job to do it, but he was making a public record on YouTube of his, sort of erratic beliefs. And he said, I guess the son's justification was that he was going to have to be there when the Great Awakening happened so he could help people understand what was taking place. And I guess this has gone beyond just, hey, here's our explanation of how the world works, to, we have a lot of people who are changing their lives and organizing their lives around it, which comes off as almost dangerous. There's no accountability for it, and I guess that's what it is. I mean, we'll have all sorts of people with all sorts of telling people to do all sorts of things, but we know who they are, and you can criticize them and take action if need be. But here, there's no accountability for the person giving the instructions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It just puts us in a very strange situation, which means if God forbid there was some sort of seriously violent event that caused a lot of damage and was caused by someone who was motivated by their QAnon belief, we wouldn't know who specifically to track those actions to. I mean, it is a very strange, dangerous situation. It's very new. It's like there has been sort of cults before. There has been even violent cults, but we've never had a sort of this kind of weird movement that's so far detached from reality, in which we don't have no idea who really is leading it. I mean, it's a brave new world for everyone.
And what are the odds of something like this happening? Let's say Trump leaves office, and we've got somebody else comes in, whether it's Kamala Harris or who knows who. Is there going to be a Q working for that person too? Is there another market yet to be exploited by some huckster online?
I kind of doubt it. I mean, Trump is a unique figure because he was so conspiratorial. We've never had a president who was so conspiratorial, and so everyone who was already predisposed to conspiracy theories kind of gravitated towards him and believed he was capable of extraordinary things. And so consequently, I really doubt it. In fact, if hypothetically the Democrat wins in the upcoming 2020 presidential election, then I actually kind of suspect that the current Q will probably just follow Trump. They'll say that, he's still working to take down the cabal, but he has to do it from outside of the presidency. Now the deep state can't touch him. And now that he's not in office anymore, they'll come up with some sort of excuse. But I really think that the QAnon phenomenon could only happen with Trump.
So where do we go from here? So Q is down, 8chan is down. Twitter, for whatever reason, has decided to allow a lot of these Q-centric accounts to continue. I'm surprised they haven't taken some of them down. Is that sort of the next step?
It would be interesting to see if anyone else is going to take action against QAnon. I mean, last year in September of 2018, Reddit banned all QAnon content off of their platform, and I think that did a lot of good in order to cripple the movement, basically. But no one else has really taken any action. I mean, most people in the QAnon community, they get a lot of information from YouTube even, and so YouTube, they are not taking any real action against QAnon. It would be interesting to see if they do take a more of a hard line against people who, push QAnon. Even just on YouTube, I would be happy if they prevented them from just profiting from these videos. That would be a step up. It'd be interesting to see if more tech companies start seeing QAnon as something that's something that's seriously dangerous and start taking more action against them.
Yeah, I have to wonder how they would draw that line, because we wind up in a place where, if they're going to do QAnon, then, in some ways QAnon is just political and social commentary. I mean, obviously it's conspiratorial, but what else are you going to ban too? I mean, you have a lot of radical preachers on YouTube running around too. I mean, are we going to ban them? That's an excellent point. It's how do you draw the line between fostering a sort of a healthy, productive kind of community and sort of banning content that's sort of destructive to that ends, and sort of having these giant unaccountable Silicon Valley corporations basically deciding what is and is not appropriate political speech. That certainly forces us to go down sort of a very dangerous path as well. I'm not sure where to draw the line. I mean, I will say that Reddit certainly did not hurt at all from banning the QAnon content. Yeah, because it seems like right now we're in a strange stalemate where obviously the government, I think some of them, would love to get in there and start banning speech that they didn't like, and they make no bones about it. And I think corporations, they're very hesitant to do it because unless they have government orders to stand down, they're sort of left hanging out in the wind. Yeah,
at the same time, the corporations, they would prefer to do things voluntarily their way rather than have to deal with, government regulations and bureaucracy. I'm sure they're trying to find some sort of happy medium in a way that sort of, appeases their stockholders and gets the government off their back as much as humanly possible. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to, thread that needle, but I guess we'll see.
There's only one person that decides what we can say, and that's me. I put my foot down. So,
fair enough.
Yeah, interesting conversation as usual. We are out of time, so we'll be wrapping up the show. Now, do you have any website, or where do you like to be found, Travis?
Sure. If you're interested in what I do, you can find me on Twitter at Travis_view, and we have a podcast called the QAnon Anonymous Podcast, and you can find that where on your favorite podcasting app. We recently did a really fascinating interview with 8chan creator Frederick Brennan, who goes into basically the journey of that website. So it's very, very interesting.
Okay, we'll have that link to our site, and again, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
To find out more about our show, guests, or to listen to past shows from our archive, please go to www.houseofmysteryradio.com.
The mission has been completed.
The end. By George, he's got it. It is the end.
I'll say it.
If you're lying to me, I'll be back.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.